The world is not fair. It is only ruled, and those who understand power, its laws, its illusions, its leverage, rise. The rest follow. You don't need to be cruel, but you must be clear. You don't need to deceive, but you must never be naive. In this lesson, I'll show you how a true prince thinks, strategically, silently, and always ahead of his enemies. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Let me tell you a truth that the weak fear to acknowledge. Power does not rest in your hands. It rests in the eyes of those who watch you. I have seen princes fall despite their armies, and merchants rule despite their common birth. The difference? Not gold, not armies, not even divine right. The difference was perception. Think of the great rulers throughout history. Did Caesar hold Rome through strength alone? No. He held it through the carefully cultivated image of inevitability. The Senate feared him not because he was the strongest, but because he appeared undefeatable. This is your first lesson in power. What you are matters far less than what you appear to be. When you walk into a room, do people see your doubts, your fears, your hesitations? They should not. They must see only what you choose to show them. This is not deception. It is the art of governance. Consider how a lion tamer controls beasts 3 times his size. Does he actually possess more strength than the lion? Of course not. But he projects authority with such conviction that even the king of beasts submits to his will. The masses respond not to reality, but to appearances. This is why weak leaders with strong imagery often outlast strong leaders with weak presence. The people do not follow the truth. They follow the story that captures their imagination. I have watched rulers make the fatal mistake of believing that their actual power, their wealth, their connections, their raw ability, matters more than their perceived power. These rulers now lie in unmarked graves, overthrown by those who understood that perception creates reality. Here is what most don't understand. Perception is not just about grand gestures. It's in the subtle arts of power, the way you respond to challenges, the timing of your silence, the calculated display of both mercy and strength. Let me share a truth I observed in the courts of Florence. When a leader faces crisis, the people watch not for his solution, but for his demeanor. A calm face during chaos is worth more than 1,000 soldiers in times of peace. This is why the wisest rulers maintain their composure even when their world crumbles. They understand that their reaction shapes reality more than the crisis itself. Consider the art of diplomatic meetings. 2 rulers meet, both knowing their true strength, yet the one who controls perception often wins before a single word is spoken. How? Through mastery of presence, through understanding that every gesture, every pause, every flicker of the eye sends messages that shape reality. You must master this art. When you speak, speak with unshakable authority, even if you harbor doubts. When you act, act with decisive confidence, even if you are uncertain. When you lead, lead as though your victory is already written in the stars. But remember, this is not about empty showmanship. The art of perception requires deep understanding of human nature. People want to believe in strength. They yearn to follow someone who appears to know the way. Your task is not to fool them. It is to become the embodiment of what they seek. Learn to control not just your words and actions, but your very presence. How do you stand? How do you hold your gaze? These seemingly small details create the aura of power that will make others naturally submit to your will. The true prince understands that power is theater, and we are all actors on its stage. Master the role you were born to play. Let others see in you what they need to see. Become not just a leader, but a symbol of leadership itself. But let me ask you this. Have you ever watched a master painter at work? They don't just throw color on canvas. They understand how light and shadow create depth. Your power must be wielded with the same artistry. Create depth through contrast. Show strength through strategic displays of calculated vulnerability. Let your silence speak louder than words. Some will call this manipulation. They are fools who do not understand the nature of leadership. In the game of power, perception is not a tool of deception. It is the foundation of order. When a leader projects strength, stability follows. When they project wisdom, people seek their counsel. When they project inevitability, resistance crumbles before it forms. Remember, in the game of power, it is better to appear strong than to be strong. For strength can be challenged, but the appearance of strength properly maintained can become self-fulfilling prophecy. Your goal is not to be the most powerful person in the room. Your goal is to be perceived as such. Master this distinction, and you will master the first fundamental law of power. The weak obsess over what they lack. The powerful shape what others see. Which will you choose to be? Here's what most people don't understand about fear and love. Both are currencies of power, but only one holds its value. I have watched princes chase the love of their subjects, only to find themselves overthrown when difficult decisions became necessary. I have seen leaders cherish popularity over authority, only to discover that popularity is as fickle as the wind. Let me be clear. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. This is not cruelty. It is wisdom born from understanding human nature. Consider this truth about mankind. People love at their convenience and fear at their core. When times are good, when your decisions align with their desires, they will profess undying loyalty and eternal love. But what happens when you must make choices that serve the greater good at the expense of individual comfort? Love turns to resentment in an instant. But fear? Fear remains constant. This is not a celebration of tyranny. The wise prince understands that excessive fear breeds hatred, and hatred leads to destruction. The art lies in cultivating the right kind of fear, not the terror of the tyrant, but the deep respect born from understanding that actions have consequences. Think of a father who is both loved and feared by his children. They love him for his protection and guidance, but they fear disappointing him enough to think twice before disobedience. This is the model of effective leadership. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail to grasp this fundamental truth? They believe that being loved will protect them. They mistake temporary approval for lasting loyalty. They forget that human nature is fundamentally self-interested. The masses will praise you today and crucify you tomorrow if it serves their interests. Love is a fair-weather friend. Fear is an all-weather enforcer. Here's the subtle art few understand. The fear I speak of is not the fear of violence or death. It is the fear of losing position, of losing favor, of losing opportunity. It is the fear of consequences that keeps people in line when love would let them stray. I have seen rulers who were beloved by their people lose everything because they couldn't bear to make unpopular decisions. Their love for popularity became their weakness, and their weakness became their downfall. Consider instead the ruler who maintains order through respect and consequence. When difficult choices must be made, they are made. When unpopular actions must be taken, they are taken. The people may not love every decision, but they respect the consistency and clarity of purpose. This is the paradox of leadership. Sometimes the most caring action appears the most callous. To protect the whole, you must sometimes disappoint the parts. To serve the future, you must sometimes sacrifice the present. The true prince understands that leadership is not a popularity contest. It is the art of maintaining order and achieving goals. Sometimes this means being feared enough to be respected, even if it means being loved less than you might wish. But remember this crucial distinction. Fear must never become terror. Terror creates enemies. Fear creates caution. Your goal is to be feared enough to maintain order, not so much that you inspire desperate resistance. The sweet spot lies in being formidable without being frightening, respected without being resented, feared enough that people think twice before betraying you, but not so feared that they dream of destroying you. Think of it this way. Love is like a beautiful flower that withers in harsh weather. Fear is like the roots that hold firm through every storm. The wise prince cultivates both, but knows which one to rely on when the storms come. You must learn to be both the giver of rewards and the enforcer of consequences. Let your generosity be memorable, but let your punishment be unforgettable. Let people love you when they can, but ensure they fear disappointing you always. This is not a choice between being good or being evil. It is a choice between being effective or being vulnerable, between leading with clarity or failing with popularity. The masses may not write songs about the feared leader, but they will follow his laws. They may not compose poems about the enforcer of consequences, but they will respect his boundaries. In the end, it is better to be respected than adored, better to be feared than praised, for praise is a currency that becomes worthless precisely when you need it most. Let me share with you a truth that the moralists fear to acknowledge. In the realm of power, results matter more than methods. The history books judge rulers not by their scruples, but by their achievements. Here's what most people don't understand. The path to greatness is rarely clean. Every empire, every lasting achievement, every significant change in history came with choices that would make the common man uncomfortable. This is not a celebration of evil. It is a recognition of reality. The true prince understands that leadership demands clarity of purpose over clarity of conscience. When you hold the fate of many in your hands, your personal morality must bow to necessity. The greater good often requires actions that seem, in the moment, less than good. Consider the surgeon who cuts into healthy flesh to remove a cancer. Is he cruel? No, he is necessary. He causes pain to create healing. This is the model of effective leadership. Sometimes you must do what appears harsh to achieve what is beneficial. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail in their grand ambitions? Because they let their personal morality interfere with necessary action. They choose to be good rather than effective. They prefer to fail with clean hands than succeed with stained ones. This is the mark of a weak leader, one who places their own moral comfort above their duty to achieve results. Think of the great rulers throughout history. Did Alexander build his empire by asking politely? Did Caesar create Rome's greatest age through pure benevolence? No. They understood that the end goal, a greater, more stable, more prosperous state, justified the means required to achieve it. The wisdom lies in understanding that morality is a luxury of the observer, not the actor. Those who judge history from their comfortable chairs have the privilege of moral absolutism. Those who make history must deal in the currency of reality. I have watched princes lose their states because they wished to be thought of as good men. Their desire for moral purity became the weapon of their destruction. Their enemies, unburdened by such constraints, simply waited for the perfect moment to strike. Here's the crucial distinction you must understand. This is not a license for needless cruelty or casual evil. Every action must serve a purpose. Every seemingly harsh choice must lead to a greater good. The ends justify the strategy only when the ends themselves are justified. The true prince thinks in terms of outcomes, not appearances. When you must choose between being thought good and achieving good, choose achievement. The judgment of history will vindicate you, even if the judgment of your contemporaries does not. Consider the leader who must make unpopular decisions during a crisis. The masses, understanding only their immediate discomfort, will protest. But if these decisions save the state, if they preserve order and create prosperity, were they not ultimately more moral than comfortable choices that would have led to collapse? This is the paradox of power. Sometimes the most ethical choice appears the least ethical in the moment. The most beneficial action may seem, to the short-sighted, like the most harmful. You must learn to think beyond the immediate. Every action should be judged not by its apparent morality, but by its ultimate contribution to your greater purpose. If an action seems harsh, but leads to stability, it is good. If an action seems kind, but leads to chaos, it is evil. The wise. Prince understands that reputation for morality is different from effectiveness in leadership. Build your reputation through visible acts of virtue, but never let this reputation prevent you from doing what must be done when circumstances demand it. Remember, history judges rulers by their achievements, not their methods. A prince who loses his state through moral perfection serves neither himself nor his people. But a prince who preserves and strengthens his state through necessary action serves the greater good, regardless of how his methods may be judged. This is not an easy truth to accept. The common mind rebels against it, but leadership is not for the common mind. It is for those who can see beyond conventional morality to the greater patterns of cause and effect. In the end, you must choose. Will you be judged good by your contemporaries and fail your state? Or will you do what necessity demands and be vindicated by the results you achieve? The true prince knows that history absolves those who succeed. Choose success, choose effectiveness, choose to be judged by your achievements rather than your methods, for in the final accounting, it is not how virtuously you ruled that matters, but how well you served the greater purpose of your state and your people. Here's what most people don't understand about mercy. It is a weapon, not a virtue. Used wisely, it strengthens your rule. Used foolishly, it destroys it. I have watched princes fall because they thought endless kindness would ensure endless loyalty. They failed to grasp that excessive mercy is perceived not as generosity, but as weakness. And weakness in the game of power is the one sin that cannot be forgiven. Let me share a truth I observed in the courts of Italy. When a ruler shows mercy to everyone, he effectively shows mercy to no one. The currency of forgiveness, like any currency, loses its value through inflation. Every pardon you grant without cause weakens the power of those you grant with purpose. Consider the parent who forgives every transgression of their child. Does this create respect? No, it breeds contempt. The child learns not gratitude, but entitlement. The same principle applies to governance. Those who receive mercy too easily come to expect it as their right, rather than recognize it as your choice. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fall into this trap? They mistake the temporary warmth of approval for the lasting strength of respect. They forget that human nature craves not endless kindness, but clear boundaries. The true prince understands that mercy must be balanced with discipline. When you forgive, do it in a way that demonstrates your power, not your weakness. Let every act of mercy be a conscious choice that serves your greater strategy. Think of mercy as a rare wine, not common water. Its value lies in its scarcity. When you do show mercy, make it memorable. Make it teach a lesson. Make it serve as both redemption for the recipient and instruction for the observers. I have seen rulers destroy their authority through misplaced compassion. They forgave betrayals that should have been punished. They pardoned insurrections that should have been crushed. Each act of mercy became a precedent, each pardon an invitation to further disobedience. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. Mercy should be tactical, not habitual. It should be a tool of statecraft, not a reflex of sentiment. When you show mercy, it should be for one of three purposes: to demonstrate your magnanimity, to bind someone to your service, or to set an example that serves your interests. Consider how the wisest rulers use mercy. They make it theatrical. When they forgive, they do it publicly, with ceremony. They ensure that both the mercy and the power to grant it are remembered. They turn the act of forgiveness into a demonstration of their authority. The art lies in understanding when mercy strengthens and when it weakens. Forgive a first offense that came from fear or misunderstanding, but punish a calculated betrayal. Pardon those whose talents can serve you, but remove those whose continued presence invites chaos. Remember this distinction. Mercy should never be automatic. It should be deliberate, calculated, and rare enough to maintain its power. Each act of mercy should reinforce, not diminish, your authority. You must learn to use mercy as you would use any other tool of power. Time it well, stage it effectively, ensure it serves your greater purpose. Let your mercy be like lightning, brilliant, memorable, and not too frequent. The masses may praise a gentle ruler, but they respect a just one. Justice means punishment when necessary, mercy when strategic. It means maintaining the balance that keeps order, not indulging in the weakness that invites disorder. I have observed that the most stable states are those where mercy and punishment dance in perfect balance, where forgiveness is possible but never guaranteed, where the hope of mercy motivates good behavior, but the certainty of consequences prevents bad behavior. Think of your authority as a sword. Mercy is not about letting the sword rust in its scabbard. It's about choosing when to sheath it and when to draw it. Both choices should demonstrate your power. The true prince knows that mercy, like any other aspect of rule, must serve the greater goal of maintaining order and authority. When mercy strengthens your position, grant it. When mercy would weaken your position, withhold it. Let necessity, not sentiment, guide your hand. You must also understand the timing of mercy. Grant it too quickly, and you lose its power. Grant it too late, and you lose its benefit. The perfect moment for mercy is when it will be most appreciated and remembered, when it will create the strongest bonds of obligation. Here's the final wisdom about mercy. It should never be your primary tool of governance. Build your authority on clear laws, swift justice, and consistent consequences. Let mercy be the exception that proves the rule, not the rule itself. For in the end, it is not how often you forgive that determines your success as a ruler. It is how wisely you balance mercy with justice, kindness with strength, forgiveness with consequence. The weak ruler relies on mercy to be loved. The wise ruler uses mercy to be respected. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose strategy over sentiment. Choose to be respected rather than merely liked. Here's what most people don't understand about cruelty. It is not about passion. It is about precision. The moment it becomes emotional, it loses its purpose and becomes mere violence. I have watched rulers destroy themselves through impulsive brutality, thinking they were showing strength. They failed to grasp that cruelty, like any tool of statecraft, must be wielded with surgical precision. It is a last resort, not a first response. Let me share a truth that the gentle-hearted fear, to acknowledge sometimes cruelty is necessary. But, and this is crucial, it must be swift, decisive, and purposeful. Like a doctor's knife, it should cut once, cut deep, and cut clean. Consider the difference between a surgeon and a butcher. Both cut flesh, but one heals while the other merely destroys. The true prince must be the surgeon of the state, using harsh measures only when necessary, and always with a healing purpose in mind. But let me ask you this: why do so many leaders fail to understand the proper use of cruelty? They mistake brutality for strength. They think that fear built on constant cruelty creates stability. They forget that what terrorizes also unifies against them. The wise prince understands that cruelty must be like bitter medicine, used rarely, administered quickly, and always with a clear purpose of healing the state. When you must be cruel, do it all at once. Let the shock be sudden but brief. Never let it become a prolonged spectacle that breeds resentment. Think of how a lion hunts. Swift, decisive, without malice. It kills not for pleasure, but for necessity. This is the model for necessary harshness in leadership. When circumstances demand severe action, act like the lion, quickly, cleanly, and then move on. I have seen rulers who delighted in cruelty, thinking it made them powerful. They died at the hands of those they tormented, their states in ruins, their names cursed by history. Cruelty driven by emotion is the mark of a weak mind, not a strong leader. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The most effective cruelty is that which serves a clear strategic purpose and then ceases immediately. It should be like lightning, a sudden flash that clears the air, not a prolonged storm that destroys the landscape. Consider how the wisest rulers use harsh measures. They act decisively when needed, but they never make a show of it. They understand that cruelty should be like surgery, necessary but not celebrated, effective but not enjoyed. The art lies in understanding when harshness serves the state and when it undermines it. Use it to prevent greater evils, to establish necessary order, to stop dangerous precedents. But never use it to satisfy personal vendettas or emotional impulses. Remember this distinction. Cruelty should be strategic, not sadistic. It should serve the future, not punish the past. Each harsh action should have a clear purpose that serves the greater good of the state. You must learn to use severe measures like you would use any powerful medicine, with careful consideration of the dose. Too little fails to cure the disease, too much kills the patient. The dosage must be exact, the timing perfect. The masses may fear a cruel ruler, but they despise a sadistic one. The difference lies not just in the frequency of harsh actions, but in their purpose and execution. Strategic severity can create stability. Emotional cruelty breeds revolution. I have observed that the most stable states are those where harsh measures are rare but decisive, where severity serves a purpose beyond mere punishment, where cruelty, when used, is so swift and purposeful that it prevents the need for future harshness. Think of your authority as a sharp blade. The threat of its use often serves better than its actual employment. But when you must use it, strike. Once strike decisively and then sheath it immediately. The true prince knows that cruelty is the most dangerous tool in the arsenal of power. Used correctly, it can establish order that lasts generations. Used incorrectly, it can destroy everything you've built in a moment. You must also understand the aftermath of harsh actions. After necessary severity, demonstrate double measure of wisdom and benevolence. Let people see that your harshness served a purpose, that it led to better conditions, that it was medicine, not poison. Here's the final wisdom about cruelty. It should be like a surgeon's knife, used only when necessary, guided by wisdom rather than emotion, aimed at healing rather than harm. The moment it becomes emotional or habitual, you have failed as a leader. For in the end, it is not how harsh you can be that determines your success as a ruler. It is how wisely you can use severe measures when necessary, while maintaining the stability and loyalty of your state through better means. The weak ruler uses cruelty from fear. The tyrant uses it from pleasure. The wise ruler uses it from necessity, and only from necessity. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose purpose over passion. Choose to be respected rather than feared alone. Here's what most people don't understand about power. The strongest walls are built not of stone, but of thought. The greatest fortress is the disciplined mind of a ruler who knows both himself and his purpose. I have watched princes build mighty castles while leaving their minds vulnerable to every passing whim. They fortified their borders but left their judgment weak, their resolve scattered, their purpose unclear. These rulers lost their states not to superior armies, but to inferior thinking. Let me share a truth I observed in the courts of Italy. A ruler with an undisciplined mind will lose even the most fortified city. But a ruler with mental clarity can defend even the weakest position. The battle for power begins not on the battlefield, but in the chambers of your own thought. Consider the great strategists of history. Did Alexander conquer the known world through mere physical strength? No. His greatest weapon was his strategic mind, his clarity of purpose, his unwavering resolve. The body follows where the mind leads. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders neglect this crucial fortress? They train their bodies, build their armies, fill their treasuries, yet leave their minds untamed, their thoughts undisciplined, their purposes unclear. The true prince understands that mental fortification comes before all else. Your thoughts must be like well-trained soldiers, disciplined, focused, ready to deploy at your command. Your mind must be like a sealed chamber where decisions are made in clarity, undisturbed by the storms of emotion. Think of your mind as your first and most crucial territory. How well do you govern it? Are your thoughts your subjects or your masters? Do your emotions serve your purpose, or do they rule your actions? These are the questions that determine your fitness to rule others. I have seen rulers whose physical courage was legendary, yet they crumbled before their own fears and doubts. They could face any external enemy, but were defeated by the internal foes of uncertainty, impulsiveness, and mental weakness. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. Every external battle is first won or lost in the mind. Before you can command armies, you must command your thoughts. Before you can govern a state, you must govern yourself. Consider how the wisest rulers prepare themselves. They build habits of mental discipline. They create rituals of reflection. They understand that every moment of clarity is a brick in the fortress of their power. The art lies in building 4 walls of mental strength. First, the wall of purpose, knowing exactly what you aim to achieve. Second, the wall of perception, seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Third, the wall of patience, understanding when to act and when to wait. Fourth, the wall of presence, maintaining complete command of your faculties at all moments. Remember this distinction. Physical fortresses can be breached, armies can be defeated, treasuries can be emptied. But a well-fortified mind remains unconquerable. It is the one possession that cannot be taken from you by force. You must learn to treat your mind like a sacred temple, guard what enters it, test every thought, question every assumption. Let nothing pass your mental gates that does not serve your greater purpose. The masses may be impressed by external shows of strength, but true power flows from mental fortitude. A ruler who cannot govern his thoughts cannot govern his state. A prince who cannot command his emotions cannot command respect. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who built their mental fortress first. They created inner stability before seeking outer conquest. They mastered themselves before attempting to master others. Think of your mind as the command center of your power. Every thought is a soldier, every decision a battle plan, every habit a defense strategy. How well do you maintain this crucial headquarters? The true prince knows that mental discipline is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Clarity of thought, strength of purpose, control of emotion, these are the foundations upon which all other power is built. You must also understand the daily practice of mental fortification. Start each day by reinforcing your purpose. End each day by reviewing your choices. Let every moment in between be guided by conscious thought rather than reactive emotion. Here's the final wisdom about mental strength. It must be built before it is needed. You cannot fortify your mind in the midst of crisis any more than you can build walls during a siege. The time to strengthen your mental fortress is now, today, in every moment. For in the end, it is not your physical strength, your wealth, or even your armies that determine your success as a ruler. It is the clarity of your thought, the strength of your purpose, and the discipline of your mind. The weak ruler builds external defenses while leaving his mind vulnerable. The wise ruler fortifies his mind first, knowing that all other strength flows from mental clarity. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose mental discipline over physical display. Choose to be unshakable in mind before attempting to be unshakable in power. Remember, the greatest battles you will ever fight are not against external enemies, but against the untamed forces of your own mind. Master these inner battles, and the outer ones become merely a matter of execution. Here's what most people don't understand about human nature. Men are not what they claim to be. They show you their mask, while hiding their true face. The prince who mistakes the mask for the man is destined for betrayal. I have watched rulers fall because they believed what people said rather than observing what people did. They took promises at face value. They accepted loyalty oaths as guarantees. They forgot that words are wind, but actions reveal truth. Let me share a truth that the naive fear to acknowledge people are loyal until it costs them. They are honest until deception profits them. They are faithful until faith becomes inconvenient. This is not cynicism. It is clarity. Consider how men behave in times of prosperity versus adversity. In good times, everyone professes undying loyalty. But when the storm comes, how many remain? This is the true test of character, and few pass it. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail to see through the masks? They want to believe the best in people. They mistake cynicism for wisdom. They forget that understanding human nature in its truth is different from condemning it. The true prince understands that people are neither angels nor demons. They are survivors. They will do what serves their interests, speak what advances their causes, and believe what eases their consciences. Think of human nature as a river. It always flows downhill, always seeks the path of least resistance, always serves its own course. You cannot change its nature, but you can channel it to serve your purpose. I have seen rulers destroyed by their faith in empty promises, by their trust in false friends, by their belief in loyalty that existed only in words. They failed to understand that every man is the hero of his own story and will betray yours to serve his. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. People will always choose their own interests over yours. The art of leadership is not in changing this truth, but in making their interests align with yours. Consider how the wisest rulers handle human nature. They never expect more than human nature can give. They reward loyalty but verify it. They accept promises but watch actions. They listen to words but trust only deeds. The art lies in understanding the three primary motivators of men: fear, interest, and vanity. Fear makes them cautious. Interest makes them act. And vanity makes them predictable. Master these livers, and you master human nature. Remember this distinction. Understanding human nature is not about becoming cruel or distrustful. It is about seeing clearly so you can lead effectively. The shepherd who understands the nature of sheep leads them better than one who imagines them to be lions. You must learn to read men as they are, not as they present themselves. Watch what they do when they think no one is looking. Notice what they sacrifice and what they protect. Observe who they praise in public but criticize in private. The masses may show you their masks, but their true faces are revealed in their actions. A wise ruler looks past the performance to see the performer, past the words to see the intent. I have observed that the most successful rulers are those who understand human nature without condemning it. They accept its limitations while using its predictability. They don't expect people to be better than they are. They expect them to be exactly what they are. Think of every interaction as a play where everyone wears a mask. Your task is not to tear off their masks. That only creates enemies. Your task is to see through them while playing your own role perfectly. The true prince knows that understanding human nature is the foundation of effective rule. You cannot govern what you do not understand. You cannot lead those whose true motives remain a mystery to you. You must also understand the art of working with human nature rather than against it. Don't expect people to act against their interests. Create situations where their interests align with yours. Don't demand unwavering loyalty. Create conditions where loyalty benefits them more than betrayal. Here's the final wisdom about human nature. People will always be people. They will act according to their nature, serve their own interests, and choose the path that benefits them most. The wise ruler accepts this reality and uses it rather than fighting it, for in the end, it is not how men should be that matters, but how they are. The weak ruler believes what he wishes about human nature. The wise ruler sees it clearly and leads accordingly. Choose clarity over illusion. Choose understanding over idealism. Choose to see people as they are rather than as you wish them to be. For only in this clear vision can true leadership take root and flourish. Remember, the greatest skill of a ruler is not in changing human nature, but in understanding it so completely that it becomes a tool of governance rather than an obstacle to it. Here's what most people don't understand about weakness. It's not the having of it that destroys you, it's the showing of it. Every leader has vulnerabilities, but the true prince never lets them become visible. I have watched rulers fall, not because they were weak, but because they allowed their weakness to become public. They confused honesty with transparency, authenticity with vulnerability. They forgot that in the game of power, appearance shapes reality. Let me share a truth that the transparent fear to acknowledge. The moment you reveal your weaknesses, you give others the map to your destruction. Every vulnerability you display becomes a weapon in your enemy's arsenal. Consider the lion who limps. Does he survive long in the wilderness? No. The moment other predators sense weakness, they attack. Human nature is no different. The perception of weakness invites aggression, as surely as blood draws sharks. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail to guard their vulnerabilities? They believe that showing weakness makes them relatable, that displaying vulnerability makes them authentic. They forget that the masses don't want a relatable leader. They want an indomitable one. The true prince understands that strength is often more about presentation than reality. Even in moments of doubt, your exterior must remain unshakable. Even in times of crisis, your demeanor must project absolute control. Think of your public image as armor. Would you go into battle with visible holes in your protection? Every sign of weakness you display is like a gap in your armor, an invitation for attack. I have seen rulers destroy years of carefully built authority with a single moment of visible uncertainty. They showed fear during crisis, hesitation during challenge, doubt during decision. These moments became the seeds of their downfall. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. Everyone has weaknesses, but not everyone needs to display them. The art lies not in being invulnerable, but in appearing so. Consider how the wisest rulers handle their vulnerabilities. They transform them into strengths before the public eye. If they must show uncertainty, they frame it as careful deliberation. If they must show fear, they present it as prudent caution. The art lies in maintaining three crucial appearances: strength in crisis, certainty in decision, and control in chaos. Master these, and even real weaknesses become irrelevant in the eyes of others. Remember this distinction: having private doubts is natural, displaying them is fatal. The inner chamber of your mind is where uncertainties should live and die, never seeing the light of public scrutiny. You must learn to wear strength like a second skin. Your walk, your talk, your every gesture must radiate unshakable confidence. Not the brash confidence of a fool, but the quiet certainty of true power. The masses may claim to want authentic, vulnerable leaders, but watch how quickly they turn on those who show weakness. People follow strength, real or perceived. They align themselves with power, genuine or projected. I have observed that the most enduring rulers are those who master the art of appearing invulnerable while privately addressing their weaknesses. They create an outer shell so strong that inner doubts become irrelevant. Think of your public persona as a fortress. Every expression, every gesture, every word must be a stone in that wall. No crack can appear, no matter how strong the pressure, from within. The true prince knows that appearance and reality are two different battlefields. Win the battle of appearance, and you often won't have to fight the battle of reality. Your perceived strength becomes your actual power. You must also understand the daily practice of strength projection. It's in the way you enter a room, the tone of your voice, the steadiness of your gaze. Every detail matters. Every moment is a performance that either reinforces or undermines your image. Here's the final wisdom about appearing strong. It must become second nature. You cannot consciously act strong all the time. You must become the embodiment of strength in the eyes of others. For in the end, it is not your actual power that determines your success as a ruler. It is your ability to project power, to maintain an aura of invulnerability, to make others believe in your strength so completely that it becomes reality. The weak ruler shows his wounds and asks for sympathy. The wise ruler bandages his wounds in private and shows only his armor in public. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose projection over revelation. Choose to be seen as indomitable rather than relatable. Remember, in the theater of power, your role is not to be the most authentic version of yourself. Your role is to be the strongest version of what others need you to be. Master this performance, and even real weaknesses become merely private matters rather than public liabilities. Let others bare their souls and display their doubts. You must be the mountain that stands unmoved, the rock that remains unshaken, the leader who appears untouchable, even when private storms rage within. Here's what most people don't understand about advisors. They are both your greatest strength and your greatest vulnerability. The wisdom they provide can elevate your rule. The power they accumulate can destroy it. I have watched princes fall, not from external threats, but from the quiet ambitions of their most trusted counselors. They gave too much authority, showed too much dependence, forgot that every advisor is first a human being, with all the ambitions and appetites that implies. Let me share a truth that the trusting fear to acknowledge: your closest advisors are often your most dangerous enemies, not because they begin as enemies, but because they know your secrets, understand your weaknesses, and can predict your moves. Consider the great falls of history. How many rulers were overthrown by distant enemies? How many instead were undone by those who sat at their own council table? The knife that ends a reign often comes from the hand that once offered advice. But let me ask you this: why do so many leaders fail to manage their advisors properly? They mistake loyalty for friendship, competence for trustworthiness, good counsel for good character. They forget that the most dangerous advisor is the one who appears most indispensable. The true prince understands that advisors are tools, not partners. Like any tool, they must be maintained carefully, used skillfully, and replaced when they become worn or dangerous. Never let them forget that they serve at your pleasure, not by their right. Think of your counsel as a garden. Each advisor is a plant that must be carefully tended, watered with attention, pruned when they grow too large, and uprooted when they become poisonous to the whole. I have seen rulers become prisoners of their own advisors, so dependent on their counsel that they could no longer rule without them. These rulers forgot the first law of leadership. All power must flow from you, not to you. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The art of managing advisors lies not in controlling what they do, but in controlling what they believe they can become. They must see a path to greater influence, but never to actual power. Consider how the wisest rulers handle their counselors. They create competition without creating conflict. They reward loyalty without breeding dependency. They listen to advice without becoming bound by it. The art lies in maintaining three crucial balances. First, between trust and verification, never taking counsel without checking its truth. Second, between reward and restraint, giving enough to maintain loyalty but never enough to grant independence. Third, between attention and distance, keeping advisors close enough to serve but not close enough to scheme. Remember this distinction. An advisor should be like a map, useful for guidance, but not necessary for survival. The moment you cannot rule without them, you have ceased to rule at all. You must learn to use advisors like a master chef uses knives, each for its proper purpose, none irreplaceable, all kept sharp but carefully controlled. Never let any single advisor become so essential that their loss would cripple your ability to govern. The masses may praise rulers who treat advisors as friends, but study history. Such rulers often end as puppets of their own counselors. True power lies in maintaining clear boundaries between those who advise and he who decides. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of appearing to depend on their advisors while actually depending on none of them. They create an illusion of collaborative leadership while maintaining absolute control. Think of your relationship with advisors as a dance where you always lead. Let them feel the rhythm of power without ever controlling the steps. Let them suggest the direction while you determine the destination. The true prince knows that managing advisors is perhaps the most delicate art of leadership. Too much trust leads to betrayal. Too little trust leads to poor counsel. The balance must be perfect, and it must be maintained daily. You must also understand the signs of an advisor growing too powerful when they begin to have their own followers, when others seek their favor instead of yours, when they speak of we instead of you. These are warnings that must not be ignored. Here's the final wisdom about advisors. They are necessary but dangerous, useful but untrustworthy, valuable but replaceable. Never let gratitude for good service blind you to the risks of too much influence. For in the end, it is not the quality of your advisors that determines your success as a ruler. It is your ability to use their wisdom while controlling their ambitions, to benefit from their counsel while maintaining your independence. The weak ruler becomes a prisoner of his advisors. The wise ruler makes his advisors prisoners of their own ambitions for advancement. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose control over dependency. Choose to be served rather than to serve. Remember, in the game of power, advisors are like fire, useful when controlled, destructive when they spread beyond their bounds. Keep them contained, keep them competitive, and above all, keep them aware that their position depends entirely on your favor. Here's what most people don't understand about strategy. It is not a plan. It is a mindset. The strategic mind sees what others miss, acts when others hesitate, and remains cold when others burn with emotion. I have watched rulers fall because they let their hearts rule their heads. They made decisions based on feeling rather than calculation. They confused what they wished to be true with what was actually true. And in doing so, they wrote their own epitaphs. Let me share a truth that the emotional fear to acknowledge. In the game of power, sentiment is a luxury you cannot afford. Every decision must be calculated, every action measured, every response planned. Emotion is the enemy of strategy. Consider the great strategists of history. Did Hannibal cross the Alps because he felt like it? Did Caesar cross the Rubicon on impulse? No. Every momentous decision was calculated, every risk measured, every outcome considered. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders allow sentiment to cloud their judgment? They believe that passion leads to greatness. They trust their instincts over their analysis. They forget that in the game of power, the heart is often the greatest traitor. The true prince understands that strategy requires emotional distance. You must be able to look at your own state, your own people, even your own family with the cold eyes of a chess player, considering his next move. Think of governance as a game of chess. Each piece has its value, each move its consequence. Would you sacrifice your queen because you felt emotional attachment to it? The wise player sacrifices any piece if the strategy demands it. I have seen rulers destroy perfect strategic positions because of pride, waste valuable resources because of anger, miss crucial opportunities because of sentiment. They let emotion write their strategy, and failure wrote their history. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. Strategy is not about what you want to do. It is about what needs to be done. The gap between these two is where most rulers fall. Consider how the wisest rulers handle strategic decisions. They remove themselves emotionally from the equation. They look at their situations as if they were advising a stranger. They ask not, "What do I feel?" but "What does this situation require?" The art lies in maintaining three crucial separations. First, between personal feelings and political necessity. Second, between what you wish were true and what is true. Third, between what feels right and what is strategically sound. Remember, this distinction, having emotions is natural, letting them drive strategy is fatal. Your feelings should be like the weather behind a window, visible but not affecting the climate of your decisions. You must learn to think like a strategist in every moment. Every situation is a move on the board, every person a piece in play. Every decision a calculation of advantage and disadvantage. The masses may praise rulers who lead with their hearts, but study history, such rulers often lead their states to disaster. True power lies in the cold calculations of the strategic mind. I have observed that the most successful rulers are those who master the art of strategic thinking so completely that it becomes their natural state. They don't have to remember to think strategically. They have to remember how to think any other way. Think of your mind as a strategic command center. Emotions are like civilians who must be kept outside the war room. Let them exist, but never let them enter where decisions are made. The true prince knows that strategy is not just about making plans. It's about developing a completely different way of seeing the world. Everything becomes a calculation, every situation an equation to be solved. You must also understand the daily practice of strategic thinking. Start each day by reviewing your position dispassionately. End each day by analyzing your moves objectively. Let every moment in between be guided by calculation rather than impulse. Here's what separates great strategists from mere planners. They see patterns where others see chaos. They find opportunities where others find obstacles. They remain calm where others become emotional. Consider the disciplines of strategic thinking. First, always consider multiple moves ahead. Second, always assume your opponents will make the best possible moves. Third, always have contingency plans for your contingency plans. The art of strategy also requires understanding timing. When to act, when to wait, when to advance, when to retreat. These decisions must be made with mathematical precision, not emotional impulse. Here's the final wisdom about strategy. It must become your natural state of being. You cannot think strategically only when facing important decisions. Every moment, every interaction, every piece of information must be processed through the lens of strategic advantage. For in the end, it is not how strongly you feel or how noble your intentions that determines your success as a ruler. It is how clearly you think, how carefully you calculate, and how coldly you can execute when strategy demands it. The weak ruler lets sentiment guide strategy. The wise ruler lets strategy guide everything. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose calculation over emotion. Choose to be effective rather than just passionate. Remember, in the game of power, the heart is often the greatest enemy of success. Learn to think with the cold clarity of a strategist and let your emotions exist, only in the privacy of your own thoughts, never in the execution of your plans. Here's what most people don't understand about maintaining power. You must balance two forces that naturally oppose each other: the masses who grant legitimacy and the elite who plot ascendancy. Master this balance, and your rule becomes unshakable. I have watched princes fall because they chose one side over the other. Some courted the nobles while oppressing the people. Others championed the masses while alienating the elite. Both approaches lead to the same end: destruction. Let me share a truth that the single-minded fear to acknowledge. No ruler can survive by relying solely on either the people or the nobles. The people provide the foundation of power, but the nobles provide its architecture. You need both. Consider the great rulers of history. How did Augustus maintain his power? He gave bread and circuses to the masses while keeping the Senate believing in their own importance. He understood that true power lies in the art of balance. But let me ask you this: why do so many leaders fail to maintain this crucial equilibrium? They see it as an either-or choice. They believe they must choose between populist or aristocratic rule. They forget that the art of governance lies in maintaining both simultaneously. The true prince understands that different groups require different handling. The masses want security and basic prosperity. The nobles want privilege and the appearance of power. Give each what they need, but never what they want completely. Think of your state as a ship. The people are the water that keeps you afloat, but the nobles are the sails that give you direction. Neglect either, and your vessel becomes either unnavigable or submerged. I have seen rulers gain the complete love of the people only to be overthrown by noble conspiracies. I have seen others secure total support from the aristocracy only to face popular revolts. Both failed to understand that stability requires balance. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The people and the nobles want fundamentally different things, and this tension can be used to your advantage. Let each group believe they are your primary concern, while ensuring neither becomes too powerful. Consider how the wisest rulers handle this balance. They make public shows of concern for the masses while quietly maintaining the privileges of the nobles. They enact popular reforms while preserving aristocratic influence. They master the art of giving each group just enough to remain satisfied, but never enough to become dangerous. The art lies in maintaining three crucial appearances. To the people, appear as their protector against noble excess. To the nobles, appear as the guardian of order against mob rule. To both, appear as the indispensable mediator between their interests. Remember this distinction. The people can make you king, but the nobles can make you fall. You must have both the foundation of popular support and the framework of elite cooperation. You must learn to speak two languages, one for the squares where the masses gather, another for the halls where nobles plot. Each group must hear what they need to hear, but never the same message. The masses may demand radical change, while the nobles resist any alteration to their privileges. The art of rule lies in appearing to serve both interests while actually serving your own. I have observed that the most stable states are those where the ruler becomes the essential balance point between popular and aristocratic power. Neither group can advance their interests without your mediation. Think of yourself as a scale, constantly adjusting weights between two sides. Too much power to either group tips the balance and creates instability. The goal is perfect equilibrium, maintained through constant small adjustments. The true prince knows that this balance must be actively maintained every day. It is not enough to establish it once. It must be nurtured, adjusted, and preserved through constant attention. You must also understand the warning signs of imbalance. When the nobles become too arrogant or the people too demanding, when either group begins to believe they don't need you as mediator, these are dangers that must be addressed immediately. Here's the final wisdom about managing these two forces. Never let either group realize that you need them both. Each must believe they are your primary concern, your essential support, your true base of power. For in the end, it is not the love of the people or the support of the nobles alone that ensures your survival. It is your ability to maintain both while letting neither become dominant. The weak ruler chooses sides. The wise ruler plays both sides. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose balance over bias. Choose to be the essential mediator rather than a mere partisan. Remember, in the game of power, the art lies not in choosing between the people and the nobles, but in making both groups choose you as their best option for advancing their interests. Here's what most people don't understand about religion and power. Faith is both sword and shield in the game of governance. It can defend your actions and attack your enemies. but only if you understand its true nature as a tool of statecraft. I have watched princes fall because they either scorned religion entirely or became its prisoner. Some thought themselves above the gods. Others became so tangled in religious scruple that they could not act when necessity demanded. Both extremes lead to ruin. Let me share a truth that the pious fear to acknowledge. In matters of state, religion must serve power, not command it. The appearance of faith is often more valuable than its substance. The wise prince understands this without becoming cynical. Consider the great rulers of history. Did Constantine embrace Christianity from pure conviction? Did Charlemagne spread the faith from mere devotion? No. They understood that religion is the mortar that holds the stones of state together. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail to properly utilize faith in governance? They either reject it completely, making enemies of the devout, or submit to it totally, becoming slaves to doctrine rather than masters of state. The true prince understands that religion serves three crucial purposes. It gives actions divine sanction, it provides a common bond among the people, and it offers a veil of virtue behind which necessary deeds can be done. Think of religion as a magnificent cloak. It must be worn with grace, displayed with conviction, but never allowed to tangle your feet when swift action is required. It should enhance your authority without restricting your movement. I have seen rulers lose their states because they could not balance piety with necessity. They either angered the faithful through open impiety or paralyzed themselves with excessive religious constraint. The art lies in finding the perfect middle path. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The appearance of religious devotion matters far more than its reality. The masses need to believe in your faith, but you must never let faith itself rule your decisions. Consider how the wisest rulers handle religion. They show public reverence while maintaining private freedom of action. They respect religious institutions while quietly ensuring those institutions respect state power. They speak of divine guidance while acting on practical necessity. The art lies in maintaining three crucial appearances. First, that your rule has divine sanction. Second, that your actions serve both heaven and earth. Third, that your power flows from both spiritual and temporal authority. Remember this distinction. Being devout and appearing devout are two different things. The first is a private matter. The second is a crucial tool of state. Never confuse them. You must learn to use religion like a master artist uses light and shadow. Let it illuminate your virtues, obscure your necessary sins, and cast divine radiance upon your authority. The masses may demand a ruler who shares their faith, but study history. Successful rulers are those who use faith to serve state interests while appearing to serve heaven. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of religious politics. They become defenders of faith without becoming its servants. They uphold doctrine while retaining freedom of action. Think of religion as a great stage where you must play a crucial role. The performance must be flawless, the devotion must appear genuine, but you must never forget that it is, in matters of state, a performance. The true prince knows that religion is too powerful a tool to either dismiss or submit to. It must be managed, used, and directed, always with a show of reverence, never with actual subordination of state interests to religious doctrine. You must also understand the daily practice of religious politics. Attend ceremonies with visible devotion, speak of divine guidance in public decisions. Show respect to religious leaders while quietly ensuring they remember where true power lies. Here's what separates great rulers from mere believers. They understand that faith is both real to the masses and useful to the state. They respect this reality while using this utility. Consider the disciplines of religious rule. First, never openly oppose religious sentiment. Second, always appear to act in harmony with divine will. Third, ensure religious institutions support your authority without controlling it. The art of using religion in governance also requires perfect timing. Know when to invoke divine authority and when to act on pure necessity. Know when to show piety and when to demonstrate pragmatism. Here's the final wisdom about religion and power. It must be handled with both respect and utility. Respect its power over the minds of men while utilizing that power for the good of the state. For in the end, it is not your personal faith that matters in governance. It is your ability to use religious sentiment to strengthen your rule while never becoming bound by it. The weak ruler either scorns religion or submits to it. The wise ruler respects it publicly while retaining freedom of action privately. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose utility over either cynicism or submission. Choose to use faith as a tool of state rather than letting it use you. Remember, in the game of power, religion is like fire, useful when controlled, destructive when it controls you. Master its use without becoming its servant, and you master one of the greatest tools of governance. Here's what most people don't understand about preemptive action. It is not aggression, it is survival. In the game of power, waiting to be struck first is not virtue, it is folly. I have watched princes fall because they confused patience with wisdom, restraint with strategy. They waited for threats to become actions, for dangers to become disasters. They forgot that in matters of state, hesitation is often fatal. Let me share a truth that the timid fear to acknowledge. The first move is often the decisive move. Those who wait for perfect certainty before acting will find their moment of action has become their moment of defeat. Consider the great survivors of history. Did they wait for their enemies to gather full strength? Did they watch threats grow until they became unavoidable? No, they struck when the threat was young, when the danger was still forming. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail to act preemptively? They fear being seen as aggressors. They worry about justification. They forget that in the end, history judges success, not scruples. The true prince understands that preemptive action requires three elements: proper timing, plausible justification, and perfect execution. Strike too soon, you appear aggressive. Strike too late, you become vulnerable. The art lies in the perfect moment. Think of preemptive action as preventive medicine. You don't wait for the disease to take hold before treating it. You act at the first sign of infection, when the cure is still possible and the cost is still manageable. I have seen rulers lose everything because they waited for absolute proof of hostile intent. By the time such proof arrived, their position was already compromised, their strength already undermined. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. In matters of state security, suspicion must be treated as certainty. When the stakes are survival, you cannot afford the luxury of doubt. Consider how the wisest rulers handle emerging threats. They act decisively while threats are still forming. They strike while their position is strong and their enemies are still preparing. They understand that tomorrow's danger must be eliminated today. The art lies in maintaining three crucial advantages. First, the element of surprise, acting before your opponent expects it. Second, the advantage of initiative, choosing the time and place of confrontation. Third, the benefit of strength, engaging while your position is superior. Remember this distinction. Preemptive action is not about aggression. It's about prevention. You don't strike because you want to. You strike because waiting would be more dangerous than acting. You must learn to read the signs of growing threats. Watch for subtle changes in allies' behavior. Notice small shifts in the balance of power. Pay attention to quiet preparations that could become loud actions. The masses may condemn preemptive strikes, but study history. Successful rulers are those who eliminate threats before they fully materialize. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of justified preemption. They act decisively while maintaining the appearance of reasonable response. They strike first while making it appear they had no choice. Think of your state as a body and yourself as its immune system. You must attack infections before they spread, eliminate threats before they grow, maintain health through constant vigilance. The true prince knows that waiting for threats to fully develop is a luxury he cannot afford. In the game of power, hesitation is often more costly than action. You must also understand the art of timing in preemptive action. Strike too early, you lack justification. Strike too late, you lack advantage. The perfect moment lies between these extremes. Here's what separates great rulers from mere reactors. They shape events rather than respond to them. They create situations rather than wait for them. They act while others are still contemplating. Consider the disciplines of preemptive action. First, gather intelligence constantly. Second, prepare responses before they're needed. Third, maintain the capability to strike at any moment. The art of preemption also requires perfect presentation. Each action must appear justified. Each strike must seem defensive. Each move must be explainable to allies and subjects alike. Here's the final wisdom about preemptive action. It must be both decisive and justifiable. Strike hard enough to eliminate the threat, but not so hard that you appear unnecessarily brutal. For in the end, it is not how long you wait or how much proof you gather that determines your success as a ruler. It is your ability to act decisively when action is needed, regardless of how others might initially perceive it. The weak ruler waits for threats to fully materialize. The wise ruler eliminates them while they are still forming. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose prevention over reaction. Choose to be the actor rather than the acted upon. Remember, in the game of power, the advantage always lies with the one who moves first. Master the art of justified preemption, and you master one of the key skills of survival in power. Here's what most people don't understand about sharing power. The moment you divide it, you begin to lose it. True power is not a commodity to be distributed. It is a force to be channeled. I have watched princes destroy themselves through misguided attempts at power sharing. They thought they could strengthen their position by creating allies through delegation. Instead, they created rivals through abdication. Let me share a truth that the collaborative fear to acknowledge: power divided is power diminished. Every piece of authority you distribute becomes a weapon that can be turned against you. Every responsibility you delegate becomes a potential source of independent power. Consider the great empires of history. Did Rome survive by sharing power equally among its senators? Did the great kingdoms thrive by giving true authority to their nobles? No. They created the illusion of shared power while maintaining absolute control. But let me ask you this: why do so many leaders fall into the trap of genuine power sharing? They confuse cooperation with co-rule. They mistake delegation for division. They forget that the appearance of shared authority is far more valuable than its reality. The true prince understands that power must flow like a river, all tributaries, eventually leading back to a single source. You can create channels, but never allow them to become separate streams. Think of power as a magnificent performance. Others may play their parts, but there must be only one director. Let them act on the stage, but never forget who writes the script and controls the production. I have seen rulers lose their grip on authority because they thought genuine power sharing would create loyal partners. Instead, it created ambitious rivals who saw themselves as equals rather than servants. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. People don't need real power to be effective. They need only believe they have influence. The art lies in creating the appearance of shared authority while maintaining absolute control. Consider how the wisest rulers handle delegation. They give tasks, not power. They assign responsibilities, not authority. They create the impression of partnership while maintaining the reality of command. The art lies in maintaining three crucial illusions. First, that others have meaningful input in decisions. Second, that their authority is real within their domain. Third, that their position is secure through their own merit rather than your favor. Remember this distinction. Delegation is about tasks, not power. Let others handle the work, but never let them forget who holds the true authority. You must learn to create the perfect illusion of shared governance. Let your subordinates feel important without becoming independent. Let them exercise authority without owning it. The masses may praise rulers who share power broadly, but study history. Such rulers often end up powerless themselves. True authority must remain concentrated while appearing distributed. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of projected power. They make others feel powerful while ensuring that all real authority flows from a single source. Think of your authority as the sun. It can shine everywhere without actually being everywhere. Let others bask in its light, but never let them think they can create their own source of illumination. The true prince knows that the art of power projection is more crucial than the act of power sharing. Create the appearance of collaboration while maintaining the reality of control. You must also understand the daily practice of power projection. Give public credit while maintaining private authority. Allow visible influence while retaining invisible control. Create the show of partnership while preserving the substance of command. Here's what separates great rulers from mere managers. They understand that power is not about doing everything yourself, but about ensuring everything is done according to your will. Consider the disciplines of power projection. First, never let anyone become truly indispensable. Second, maintain multiple channels of control. Third, ensure all paths of authority lead back to you. The art of power projection also requires perfect balance. Give enough authority to motivate, but not enough to liberate. Create enough independence to ensure efficiency, but not enough to allow autonomy. Here's the final wisdom about power sharing. It must be an illusion, not a reality. Create the appearance of distributed authority while maintaining centralized control, for in the end, it is not how many people appear to share your power that matters. It is how firmly you maintain ultimate control while creating the impression of collaboration. The weak ruler actually shares power. The wise ruler projects power. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose control over collaboration. Choose to be the source rather than merely one among many channels. Remember, in the game of power, the art lies not in sharing authority, but in making others believe they share in what remains solely yours. Master this distinction, and you master one of the most crucial aspects of governance. Let others believe. They are partners in power. Let them feel the importance of their position. Let them think they have real authority, but never, ever let go of the true reins of control. Here's what most people don't understand about truth in leadership. It is not about lying. It is about controlling the narrative. You need not deceive, but you must master the art of shaping how truth is perceived. I have watched princes fall because they either told too many lies or revealed too many truths. Some buried themselves in deceptions they couldn't maintain. Others exposed realities that should have remained veiled. Both extremes lead to ruin. Let me share a truth that the honest fear to acknowledge. Pure transparency is as dangerous as pure deception. The art lies not in fabricating reality, but in carefully choosing which aspects of reality to highlight and which to keep in shadow. Consider the great communicators of history. Did they succeed through constant deception? No. They succeeded by understanding that truth, like light, can be directed, focused, and shaped to serve their purpose. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders fail in the art of controlled narrative? They think their only choices are complete honesty or outright lies. They forget that between these extremes lies the subtle art of truth management. The true prince understands that information is like water. It can be channeled, filtered, and directed without being polluted. Your task is not to create false realities, but to guide how true realities are understood. Think of yourself as a master painter. You don't need to paint things that don't exist. You need only choose which aspects of reality to emphasize, which colors to heighten, which shadows to deepen. I have seen rulers destroy themselves either through webs of lies they couldn't maintain or through brutal honesty that stripped them of all mystery. The art lies in finding the perfect balance between revelation and reservation. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. People don't need to be deceived. They need to be directed. The art lies in helping them focus on the aspects of truth that serve your purpose while naturally overlooking those that don't. Consider how the wisest rulers handle information. They never lie when they can simply emphasize different aspects of truth. They never fabricate when they can simply reframe. They understand that perception management is more powerful than deception. The art lies in maintaining three crucial skills. First, the ability to recognize which truths serve your purpose. Second, the wisdom to know which realities should remain in shadow. Third, the skill to guide attention naturally toward what strengthens your position. Remember this distinction. Controlling the narrative is not about creating fiction. It's about curating reality. You don't need to invent stories when you can simply choose which true stories to tell. You must learn to use truth like a master sculptor uses light and shadow. Every fact has many facets. Your task is to ensure people see the ones that serve your purpose while naturally overlooking the others. The masses may demand complete transparency, but study history. Successful rulers are those who understand that some truths strengthen authority, while others undermine it. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of selective emphasis. They never need to lie because they have perfected the art of highlighting the most useful truths. Think of truth as a vast landscape. Your task is not to create artificial features, but to guide people's gaze toward the aspects that serve your purpose. Let them see what strengthens your position, while naturally overlooking what doesn't. The true prince knows that mastery of information is more powerful than mastery of deception. Create not false realities, but carefully curated perspectives on true ones. You must also understand the daily practice of narrative control. Guide conversations naturally toward productive topics. Let uncomfortable truths fade into the background, not through active suppression, but through lack of emphasis. Here's what separates great rulers from mere manipulators. They understand that the strongest narrative is built not on lies, but on carefully selected truths. Consider the disciplines of information management. First, know all the facts yourself. Second, understand which aspects serve your purpose. Third, guide attention naturally toward these useful elements. The art of controlled narrative also requires perfect timing. Know when to reveal and when to obscure, when to emphasize and when to let fade, when to illuminate and when to shadow. Here's the final wisdom about truth management. It must be subtle, consistent, and based in reality. Build your narrative not on fabrications that can be exposed, but on carefully chosen truths that cannot be denied. For in the end, it is not how well you can deceive that determines your success as a ruler. It is how skillfully you can guide people's understanding of reality while maintaining both your credibility and your effectiveness. The weak ruler alternates between deception and brutal honesty. The wise ruler masters the art of guided perception. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose narrative control over either deception or destructive transparency. Remember, in the game of power, the art lies not in creating false realities, but in mastering how true realities are perceived. Perfect this art, and you need never resort to outright deception. Here's what most people don't understand about stability. It is not a natural state. It is purchased with sacrifice. Every moment of peace is bought with decisions that many will not understand, and some cannot forgive. I have watched princes fall because they couldn't bear the weight of necessary choices. They wanted the crown without the burden, the power without the price, the glory without the guilt. They forgot that stability demands its tribute in difficult decisions. Let me share a truth that the gentle fear to acknowledge, everlasting. Peace is built on hard choices. Every stable realm is maintained through decisions that history may question, but necessity demands. Consider the great periods of peace in history. Did they arise naturally? Did they maintain themselves? No. Behind every golden age lies a foundation of difficult choices, of sacrifices deemed too terrible to discuss, but too necessary to avoid. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders flinch from these necessary sacrifices? They want to be loved more than they want to be effective. They prefer temporary popularity to lasting stability. They forget that the burden of rule is making choices others cannot or will not make. The true prince understands that stability has a price, and someone must pay it. Better to accept this burden consciously, with clear purpose, than to let chaos exact an even higher cost through indecision. Think of governance as a garden. Sometimes you must prune healthy branches to save the tree. Sometimes you must sacrifice beautiful flowers to maintain the garden's overall health. The wise gardener knows this. The foolish one lets sentiment override necessity. I have seen rulers lose their states because they couldn't bear to make difficult choices. They wanted peace without its price, order without its cost, stability without its sacrifice. They forgot that nature tends toward chaos unless ordered by decisive action. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The choices that maintain stability rarely feel good in the moment. They are judged not by how they feel when made, but by the peace they preserve. Consider how the wisest rulers handle necessary sacrifices. They make them decisively, without hesitation, but also without pleasure. They understand that the burden of rule includes bearing the weight of choices others would rather not contemplate. The art lies in maintaining three crucial understandings. First, that stability is not a natural state, but a created one. Second, that maintaining it requires constant choice and sacrifice. Third, that the price of order is eternal vigilance and occasional necessary harshness. Remember this distinction. Being willing to make hard choices is not the same as being cruel. The truly cruel leader enjoys the harsh choices. The wise leader makes them because they must be made, not because they want to make them. You must learn to carry the burden of necessary sacrifice with grace. Let it weight your private moments, but never show in your public face. Let it inform your wisdom without darkening your rule. The masses may cry out against difficult choices, but study history. They benefit most from the stability these choices create. The art lies in bearing their criticism while knowing the necessity of your actions. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who master the art of necessary sacrifice. They make the hard choices not with pleasure, but with clear understanding of their necessity. Think of stability as a fire that must be constantly fed. Sometimes it requires precious things as fuel. The wise ruler knows this and chooses what to sacrifice rather than letting chaos choose for them. The true prince knows that every significant achievement in governance comes with a price. Better to choose what to sacrifice than to let circumstances choose for you. You must also understand the daily practice of maintaining stability. Each day brings choices that pit immediate comfort against lasting order. Each decision must weigh short-term peace against long-term stability. Here's what separates great rulers from mere pleasers. They understand that the hardest choices are often the most necessary ones. They accept that stability requires sacrifice and peace demands its price. Consider the disciplines of necessary sacrifice. First, identify what must be done. Second, choose the minimum sacrifice necessary. Third, execute decisively and without hesitation. The art of maintaining stability also requires perfect timing. Know when to act harshly and when to show mercy. Know when sacrifice is necessary and when it can be delayed. Here's the final wisdom about stability and sacrifice. They are eternally linked. You cannot have one without the other. The art lies in choosing the sacrifices that yield the greatest stability at the lowest necessary cost. For in the end, it is not how much you are loved in the moment that determines your success as a ruler. It is how well you maintain the stability that allows your state to prosper. The weak ruler avoids necessary sacrifices. The wise ruler makes them decisively when required. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose lasting stability over temporary popularity. Choose to be effective rather than merely beloved. Remember, in the game of power, the greatest burden is not making the hard choices. It is knowing that you must make them, while others have the luxury of merely criticizing them. Accept this burden, for it is the true price of leadership. Let others maintain their innocence. Let them criticize from the comfort of their unburdened consciences. Your task is to maintain the stability that allows them such luxury, even when they cannot understand the choices that purchase their peace. Here's what most people don't understand about survival in power. It's not the strongest who survive, nor the most righteous. It's those who best adapt to change. Rigidity is death in the game of power. I have watched princes fall because they confused consistency with constancy. They thought maintaining power meant maintaining the same approaches, the same methods, the same strategies that won them power in the first place. They forgot that yesterday's winning strategy can become tomorrow's fatal flaw. Let me share a truth that the traditionalists fear to acknowledge. The methods that brought you to power are rarely the ones that will keep you there. What works in one season of rule may destroy you in another. Consider the great survivors of history. Did they maintain power by clinging to one approach? Did they succeed by remaining unchanged while the world transformed around them? No. They thrived by adapting their methods while maintaining their goals. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders resist necessary adaptation? They mistake rigidity for strength. They confuse tradition with wisdom. They forget that in nature the unbending tree breaks in the storm while the flexible reed survives. The true prince understands that adaptation is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. To change your methods while maintaining your aims, to alter your approach while preserving your purpose. This is the art of survival in power. Think of power as water. It takes the shape of any container while maintaining its essential nature. It can be still or flowing, gentle or forceful, yet remains always itself. This is the model for lasting rule. I have seen rulers lose everything because they couldn't adapt to changing times. They stood firm when they should have bent, remained rigid when they should have flowed. They confused principle with method and paid the ultimate price. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. The only constant in power should be your goal. Everything else, methods, allies, strategies, approaches, must remain flexible and adaptable to circumstance. Consider how the wisest rulers handle change. They maintain their core purpose while adapting their methods. They hold firm to their aims while remaining flexible in their approach. They understand that survival requires constant evolution. The art lies in maintaining three crucial balances. First, between consistency of purpose and flexibility of method. Second, between respecting tradition and embracing necessary change. Third, between maintaining stability and adapting to new realities. Remember this distinction. Adapting is not the same as wavering. The weak leader changes direction with every wind. The wise leader adjusts his sails while maintaining his destination. You must learn to read the winds of change before they become storms of crisis. Watch for subtle shifts in circumstance, small changes in the political climate, quiet transformations in the nature of power. The masses may praise rulers who never change, but study history. Such rulers often end as cautionary tales. True power lies in knowing what to preserve and what to adapt. I have observed that the most successful rulers are those who master the art of timely adaptation. They neither resist all change nor embrace every novelty. They understand that the key to survival is knowing when to adapt and how much to change. Think of your rule as a living thing. It must grow, evolve, and adapt while maintaining its essential nature. Like any living thing, stagnation leads to death. The true prince knows that adaptation is not just about survival. It's about thriving. Each change in circumstance presents not just a challenge to be met, but an opportunity to be seized. You must also understand the daily practice of adaptation. Start each day by assessing what has changed. End each day by considering what must change. Let every moment in between be guided by conscious choice rather than rigid habit. Here's what separates great rulers from mere traditionalists. They understand that tradition is a guide, not a chain. They honor the past while adapting to the present and preparing for the future. Consider the disciplines of adaptation. First, constantly assess your environment. Second, identify what must change and what must remain. Third, implement changes, decisively but carefully. The art of adaptation also requires perfect timing. Move too quickly, you appear unstable. Move too slowly, you become obsolete. The key lies in finding the perfect moment for necessary change. Here's the final wisdom about adaptation. It must be conscious, controlled, and purposeful. Change not for the sake of change, but for the sake of survival and success. For in the end, it is not how faithfully you maintain old methods that determines your success as a ruler. It is how skillfully you adapt to new realities while maintaining your essential purpose. The weak ruler remains rigid in all things. The wise ruler maintains firm goals while adapting his methods. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose calculated adaptation over rigid tradition. Choose to be the reed that bends and survives rather than the oak that breaks. Remember, in the game of power, the only constant should be your ultimate aim. Everything else must remain subject to adaptation as circumstances demand. Master this art, and you master the secret of lasting rule. Here's what most people don't understand about ultimate power. All external control flows from internal mastery. The prince who cannot rule himself cannot truly rule others. The mind is the first and most crucial territory you must conquer. I have watched princes master armies, yet fall slave to their own impulses. They conquered nations while remaining prisoners of their own fears, desires, and weaknesses. They forgot that the first battlefield is always within. Let me share a truth that the power seekers fear to acknowledge. External power without internal. Mastery is like building a palace on quicksand. No matter how magnificent the structure, it will sink without a solid foundation. Consider the great rulers who maintained power longest. What set them apart? Not their armies, not their wealth, not even their cunning. It was their mastery over themselves, their ability to think clearly, decide wisely, and act decisively regardless of circumstance. But let me ask you this. Why do so many leaders neglect this fundamental truth? They focus on external control while leaving their inner realm in chaos. They seek to command others while remaining servants to their own impulses. The true prince understands that all lasting power begins with self-mastery. Your thoughts must be your subjects, your emotions your servants, your impulses your soldiers, all under the absolute command of your conscious will. Think of your mind as your first and most important kingdom. How well do you govern it? Are your thoughts loyal subjects or rebellious peasants? Do your emotions serve your purpose or undermine your rule? I have seen rulers with vast armies fall because they couldn't command their own fears. I have watched princes with immense wealth destroy themselves because they couldn't control their own desires. The inner realm must be mastered first. Here's the crucial wisdom few grasp. Every external battle is first won or lost in the mind. Every challenge to your rule is first met in the territory of thought. Master this inner realm, and the outer world becomes far easier to govern. Consider how the wisest rulers maintain internal sovereignty. They create order in their thoughts before seeking order in their realm. They establish discipline in their minds before demanding it from others. They become living examples of the control they seek to exercise. The art lies in maintaining three crucial domains. First, the realm of thought, clear, focused, and purposeful. Second, the realm of emotion, controlled but not suppressed, guided but not eliminated. Third, the realm of will, absolute, unshakable, and aligned with purpose. Remember this distinction. Having power and being powerful are not the same thing. True power flows from the inside out, not the outside in. The externally powerful ruler may command others, but the internally powerful ruler commands himself. You must learn to rule your mind with the same skill you wish to rule your state. Every thought must be examined, every emotion evaluated, every impulse judged against your greater purpose. The masses may be impressed by external shows of power, but study history. Lasting rule always flows from internal mastery. The ruler who commands himself commands reality itself. I have observed that the most effective rulers are those who achieve inner sovereignty before seeking outer dominion. They create order in their minds before attempting to create order in their realms. Think of your consciousness as the capital city of your empire. Every thought is a citizen, every emotion a noble, every impulse a potential rebel. How well do you govern this crucial territory? The true prince knows that mental sovereignty is not about suppression, it's about direction. Like a skilled ruler guides his state, you must guide your mind toward your chosen purpose. You must also understand the daily practice of internal rule. Start each day by establishing order in your thoughts. End each day by reviewing your mental governance. Let every moment in between be an exercise in conscious sovereignty. Here's what separates great rulers from mere power holders. They understand that true power flows from the mastery of self. They rule themselves first and most strictly. Consider the disciplines of internal sovereignty. First, constant vigilance over your thoughts. Second, careful governance of your emotions. Third, absolute alignment of your will with your purpose. The art of self-rule also requires perfect balance. Be too rigid and you break. Be too loose and you lose control. The key lies in maintaining firm direction while allowing necessary flexibility. Here's the final wisdom about internal rule. It must be absolute yet nuanced, powerful yet flexible, constant yet adaptable. Like any good governance, it requires both strength and wisdom, for in the end, it is not your external power that determines your success as a ruler. It is your internal sovereignty, your ability to rule yourself first and most completely. The weak ruler seeks to command others while remaining a slave to himself. The wise ruler establishes sovereignty over himself before seeking it over others. Choose wisdom over weakness. Choose internal mastery over external control. Choose to be truly powerful rather than merely powerful seeming. Remember, in the game of power, the first and most crucial victory must be won in the territory of your own mind. Master this domain, and all other realms become conquerable. Fail here, and no external power can save you. Let others seek to rule through force alone. You must rule first through mastery of self, for this is the ultimate truth of power. Control your mind, and your realm will follow.